That depends entirely on the gun that you're putting in it. The TLR-1 is a fixed width. We can't make this light smaller. The gap between the holster and the trigger is dictated by the size difference between the trigger guard and the ultimate width of this light. If you're using this light with a gun that has a really narrow trigger guard, any holster you have is going to have a big gap in that area. Now, the other question is, should you care that you can spend significant effort to get a finger into the holster and then pull the trigger? What are you simulating by doing that is the question. It's important to keep things out of the holster when you're reholstering, when the gun is moving in the path that an obstacle would cause it to contact the trigger. But the nature of light-bearing holsters is such that the aperture for the light to pass in and out of the holster will always be the width of the light. And the gap between, the available gap between the exterior of the holster and the trigger guard itself is dictated by the size difference between the trigger guard and the exterior body of this light. So if you had a trigger guard that was exactly the same width as the light, you would have no gap. If you're running this on a gun that's got a really narrow trigger guard, you're going to have more gap. Pay attention to how much gap there is before you get a holster and decide whether or not that light and gun combination is safe, because the physics of holsters dictate that the gap has to be as wide as the light, otherwise it can't get in and out of the holster.